Hey everyone, I wanted to speak today about self righteousness, the ego, the soul, and specifically in the Christian circles, Christendom even, where we have a form of godliness, but not the power thereof. You know, a lot of commercial companies, including like I use as example an electrical company I had, wire some property of mine. They charged me three times the price that they had agreed to, and they were supposedly Christian brothers, and so the in the effort of charity, I paid three times the price that they charged me, and but now that I think about it, really one of the problems was the reason it took the guy so long to do the job was because he was unprepared. He didn't get the electrical boxes that could go outside the wall, which is I asked him to do. Um, they didn't staple up the wire from the ground that was sitting on the ground underneath the house. They really did. They really did very little to go and get the parts that they needed ahead of time, and that's what they should have done. That's where they made their mistake. But I waited, and I tried to. The guy tried to work around getting the additional parts, and so it cost me three times the amount of money. But you know what? I didn't mind paying that. But you're not going to do a shoddy job when I pay three times the price that you quoted me. And I had to call the guy up. I said, "Look, this is unsafe. The wire hadn't even been stapled underneath the home. It's sitting on the ground." And he'd say, "Yeah, oh yeah, you're right. You're going to have to have him come back." This was the guy's boss, and I'd called the the guy that actually did the job up two or three times before I had to call his boss in on him. But that didn't even work. You know what worked? Threatening call the inspector, who was a lodge brother of the guy that owned the company. That worked. Um, the guy just passed, and I guess they figured that wouldn't happen. The guy just passed the electrical inspector because he knew this guy, really, without even inspecting it. And I was so disappointed, to say the least, in the job that I threatened to call him back in, which really would have screwed up his business pretty bad. Now, I didn't do it. I forced them to come in and do what was right, and they finally did, but I had to push and push and push and do it. You know, when I was in the Army, I remember down at Fort Bragg, I had a first sergeant that looked at me and said, "He's timid. He's timid." You know how the Bible speaks about a child of God being meek? Well, that's what the world a lot of times sees in me. They see me as timid. They see me as somebody to walk over, I dare say. I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of hard to see how other people view you, but uh, I don't know. Just observation of myself through the years. I think I've seen enough evidence that this is what the perception that I project to people. And I had to go into that first sergeant, and I said permission to speak freely, and I told him this task didn't get done because I was doing PT in the morning for platoon sergeant. Didn't this task didn't get done because I wasn't there to overlook the troops, when they were doing their job. And this task, and I had to go down this list, and I was saying it very forcefully to the first sergeant. And he said, "Oh, so you're doing everything?" And I said to him, "You're damn right I am." And guess what? That got me respect. All of a sudden, he didn't look at me as timid. But I think for a believer that has a soft heart, you can often be mistaken as being meek or timid or whatever, because I think it's Jesus Christ in you. And there's one other thing that bothers me more than that, and that is like I started off talking about Christian people that claim the name of the Lord, but they do you wrong. Or maybe I should say they don't want to see where they're wrong. They only just want to look at things from their right position and you're wrong. And you know what does that? Pride. Pride does that because it takes humility to go, wow, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I didn't see something. Maybe I'm not looking at something the right way. Maybe I'm not seeing the full spectrum. It takes humility to do that, not pride or religious pride, which is the worst. Because I know a man who says he doesn't sin anymore. He just has glitches in the flesh. Well, I guess he means sin is, you know, sins worthy of death in the Old Testament, I guess is what he means. But my point in saying this is that if you can't forgive somebody, it's because you don't see anything that you think needs forgiving within yourselves. I have a brother-in-law. Um, I'll just say he was in jail. And I tried to help him as chaplain. And guess what? Uh, most everything that he says, if you confront him with a problem, he'll say, I didn't do anything wrong. And that's how people are. I didn't do anything wrong. You see, it's always the other guy's fault, you know? And whether you're a believer in the Lord or a false believer in the Lord, one of the things that I've always noticed is human pride. It wasn't me, it was you, or whatever. You get what I'm saying? And this is something I was noticing is that it's very hard to take a look at ourselves and say, wow, maybe I was wrong. You know, they used to say that it takes a man to admit when he's wrong. Well, it really does, because it's hard to do. We don't want to do that. We don't want to be seen as in the wrong. We want to be seen as righteous. And, you know, when you have the righteousness of Christ by grace, because you've been saved, it doesn't give you the license to go hog crazy and condemn other people because you've been saved and you think, well, they're just a bunch of heathens and I don't have anything to do with them, where you have no mercy, no love for your fellow human being or the brethren, because you think, quite frankly, there's no need for you to act like that towards them anymore. They're not brethren. We don't strive with them. We don't, you know, we're so above all that. We're so righteous. Hell, we don't make any mistakes. And yeah, and I said hell. Hell, we don't make any mistakes. But you know what? I'm not a much of I'm too intellectually honest to say that I don't make mistakes, to say that I don't have a temper, to say that I don't see injustices that need to be corrected, because they certainly do. And that brings me to, was it Matthew? I think it's 24. Let's see, Matthew 24:12, which says, because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. And then the English Standard Version says, and because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. And of course, the King James, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. So, what is that talking about? It's talking about selflessness, wickedness, and ultimately lawlessness. Because the law, and we all have understanding of the law, should be balanced in the scales of justice. Blind scale, they're balanced. But when we think that we've been not treated fairly, that you know, then we get we get defensive, we get angry, and it's like my brother-in-law does. He doesn't even talk to us anymore. I mean, actually, the problem was he he couldn't pay his bills, and I just couldn't continue to keep carrying him. But no, wasn't anything he did, you know, and for Christian people to go, oh no, it's nothing I did, it's something you did, it's your choice. Oh goodness me! You ever met people that talk like that? They're just so above reproach. Let me tell you something. Anybody that acts like that is really what the Bible calls puffed up, full of their own conceit, because they're not humble enough to realize that they have failings themselves and that they need to forgive others like they've been forgiven. Okay, thanks for watching. Good day.